Structural engineers across British Columbia are sounding the alarm. Their warnings echo across the province as 27 high-rise buildings, towering structures that house thousands of families, face the very real threat of sudden collapse. The situation is dire, with experts claiming that the risks are too great to ignore. These buildings, once symbols of prosperity and urban growth, now sit precariously on the edge of disaster. But what has caused this widespread failure? How did we get here? And more importantly, what will happen if these towers do collapse? The reality of the situation is far worse than most Canadians have been led to believe. Engineers and city planners alike are increasingly concerned about the structural integrity of these buildings. The issues range from corroding materials to fundamental design flaws that were never fully addressed when the towers were first constructed. Some are even claiming that the damage could be irreversible, and the only solution may be a total collapse of the affected towers. If left unaddressed, this crisis could reverberate across the entire country, igniting widespread panic and financial chaos. As shocking as it sounds, experts are now suggesting that the potential for these buildings to collapse is not a matter of if, but when. British Columbia, particularly Vancouver, has been facing a rapid increase in construction and development in the last 2 decades, fueled by an influx of investment and foreign capital. The city's skyline has undergone dramatic changes, with new high-rises and luxury apartments springing up to accommodate the growing population. However, much of this development came at a cost. Builders, eager to meet the growing demand for urban housing, rushed through construction projects, often cutting corners on material quality and structural assessments. But now, the consequences of those rushed decisions are coming to light. The 27 towers in question, located in Vancouver, Burnaby, and Surrey, are all facing similar issues. Engineers have identified a series of structural flaws that threaten the safety of the buildings. In some cases, it's the foundation that is crumbling, unable to withstand the weight of the towering structures. In others, it's the steel reinforcements inside the concrete that have failed, allowing for cracks to form and spread throughout the buildings. The damage, according to experts, is so severe that if repairs are not made immediately, the buildings could collapse without warning, putting thousands of residents in immediate danger. The crisis has already begun to unfold, as residents of these buildings are being told to evacuate for their safety. Engineers are working around the clock to assess the extent of the damage and find solutions to prevent a total collapse. But with supply chain disruptions, skyrocketing construction costs, and a labor shortage in the construction industry, the clock is ticking. The government has yet to step in with any meaningful response, leaving developers, building owners, and residents to fend for themselves. As engineers scramble to devise a plan of action, chaos is spreading throughout the region. Developers are being forced to shut down projects, and some are even declaring bankruptcy, unable to afford the necessary repairs. Banks, once eager to finance new construction projects, are now pulling their funding, wary of the massive financial risk that comes with the potential collapse of these buildings. Mortgage holders, many of whom have poured their life savings into these properties, are now facing an uncertain future. As property values plummet, homeowners are watching their investments crumble before their eyes. But the real disaster is yet to come. Experts warn that this is just the tip of the iceberg. These 27 towers are not the only ones facing structural issues. Engineers suspect that there may be many more buildings across British Columbia and even the rest of Canada that are at risk of failing in the coming years. The larger issue at hand is the lack of regulation and oversight in the construction industry. Over the past few decades, the government has loosened building codes and regulations to encourage rapid development, but this has come at a cost. Now, the consequences of these decisions are becoming all too clear. The financial implications of this crisis are staggering. The cost of repairing or replacing these towers is estimated to be in the billions of dollars, with taxpayers likely footing the bill for any government intervention. The damage to the real estate market will also be severe, as property values across the province are expected to fall drastically. Investors are already pulling their money out of the market, and many developers are abandoning their projects in favor of less risky investments. The housing market, once booming, is now teetering on the edge of collapse. As this crisis continues to unfold, the human cost is becoming increasingly evident. Families who have spent years saving for their dream homes are now being forced to evacuate without warning. Some are struggling to find temporary housing, while others are left with nowhere to go. The emotional toll of living in constant fear of a collapse is weighing heavily on residents, many of whom are now questioning their safety and the integrity of the homes they've worked so hard to afford. The financial strain is also hitting homeowners hard. As property values plummet, many are seeing their investments evaporate. For some, this may mean losing everything they've worked for. The ripple effects of this crisis will be felt for years to come, with some families facing bankruptcy and financial ruin. The stress and uncertainty are taking a toll on the mental health of residents, many of whom are already struggling with the financial pressures of owning a home in one of the most expensive markets in the world. But the worst may still be ahead. The real threat lies in the potential for even more buildings to collapse in the future. Engineers have warned that this is not an isolated incident, and the structural issues affecting these 27 towers could be more widespread than anyone realizes. If this crisis continues to escalate, it could lead to a full-blown disaster, affecting entire neighborhoods and potentially entire cities. The long-term consequences of such a collapse would be catastrophic, with thousands of families left without homes and billions of dollars in damages. The economy of British Columbia and possibly all of Canada would be severely impacted, and it could take years, if not decades, to recover. For now, residents are left in limbo, unsure of what will happen next. As the government continues to drag its feet, developers, banks, and homeowners are left to pick up the pieces of a broken system. The situation is only going to get worse before it gets better, and the future of British Columbia's real estate market looks increasingly uncertain. One thing is clear: this crisis is far from over, and it may be just the beginning of something much larger. As we move forward, the question remains: how will we fix this mess? And more importantly, how will we prevent something like this from happening again? The answers are still unclear, but the urgency of the situation is impossible to ignore. In the coming months, we may see even more buildings fall to the same fate, and if that happens, the financial and emotional toll on residents will be even greater. If you're living in one of these towers or know someone who is, it's time to act. The clock is ticking, and the risks are too great to ignore. As the crisis deepens, the government's response remains inadequate, and residents across British Columbia are left in a state of disbelief and fear. Despite the mounting pressure on structural engineers, developers, and local authorities, nothing significant has been done to address the growing instability of the 27 at-risk towers. This situation is no longer just a localized issue, it's a national crisis, one that has the potential to bring down much more than just the buildings themselves. If the towers collapse as predicted, it could trigger a domino effect, with financial, political, and social repercussions that ripple through the entire country. As we continue to watch this crisis unfold, we must confront the reality that this is a result of years of unchecked growth, lax regulations, and a reliance on foreign investments that have left the local infrastructure vulnerable. For too long, British Columbia's real estate market has been fueled by outside capital, often at the expense of long-term sustainability and safety. Developers, eager to cash in on the booming market, have pushed through projects without fully considering the implications for future residents or the integrity of the structures. The situation we're facing now is the result of short-term thinking and greed. The financial toll on the local economy is undeniable. With the 27 towers at risk, property values have already begun to plummet. Homeowners who have invested millions into their properties now find themselves staring at the prospect of losing everything. The damage caused by this crisis extends far beyond the immediate collapse of buildings. It's a complete breakdown of trust within the real estate market. Investors are pulling out, banks are tightening their lending policies, and developers are becoming more cautious, which leaves the entire economy in a precarious position. For residents of these towers, the stakes couldn't be higher. Many have poured their life savings into these properties, hoping to build a future for themselves and their families. But now, with the threat of collapse looming overhead, everything they've worked for is at risk. Some are left with no choice but to abandon their homes, scrambling to find temporary housing as they wait for the engineers to deliver their verdict. The emotional and financial strain is immense, and it's unclear how long it will take to recover from the damage. As the chaos escalates, the human cost of this crisis becomes more apparent. Families who once dreamed of homeownership in one of the most beautiful parts of Canada are now grappling with the harsh reality of displacement. Some residents have been forced to evacuate their homes in the dead of night, while others wait in uncertainty, unsure if their building will survive another day. The stress of living in constant fear of a collapse is taking its toll on their mental health, with many suffering from anxiety and panic attacks. Even more concerning is the long-term impact on the mental well-being of residents who have invested in these properties. The uncertainty and fear of potential collapse have left many in a state of paralysis, unable to make decisions or plan for the future. This crisis has stripped away the sense of security that homeownership is supposed to provide. For many, their homes were meant to be their sanctuary, their refuge from the stresses of daily life. Instead, they are living in a constant state of emergency, unsure if they will wake up tomorrow to find their building has crumbled to the ground. The financial strain on homeowners is also severe. With property values plummeting, those who have invested in these towers are now staring at the possibility of losing everything. For many, this is their life savings, their retirement fund, and their legacy. The market, once thriving and seemingly invincible, is now in freefall, and there is no telling how long it will take for the damage to stabilize. Many are now facing the prospect of bankruptcy as the value of their properties crashes and their ability to secure loans or refinance evaporates. Some will be forced to sell at a loss, while others may lose their homes entirely. In the face of this crisis, the government's response has been sluggish and underwhelming. While engineers have identified the issue and are scrambling to find solutions, the local and provincial governments have yet to take decisive action. The response has been largely reactive, rather than proactive, and this delay has only worsened the situation. The lack of urgency in addressing the problem has led to widespread frustration among residents, many of whom feel abandoned by the very authorities they trusted to protect their safety. Developers, too, have been slow to respond, with some refusing to take responsibility for the flaws in their buildings even as the evidence mounts. But despite the lack of action from the government and developers, there is still hope. Structural engineers are working tirelessly to assess the damage and determine the best course of action. They are collaborating with experts from across the country to develop strategies to stabilize the towers and prevent a total collapse. However, the clock is ticking, and the window for effective intervention is closing fast. If these buildings are not retrofitted or repaired in time, the consequences will be catastrophic. As more towers are found to be at risk, the crisis will only intensify. More families will be displaced, more developers will face financial ruin, and more property values will plummet. The ripple effects of this disaster will be felt for years to come, as entire neighborhoods are left in ruins and communities are torn apart. The real estate market, once the cornerstone of British Columbia's economy, may never recover from the damage caused by this crisis. But there's more. As we move forward, we must consider the broader implications of this crisis. If these 27 towers are just the beginning, what other buildings across the country are at risk? How many other developers have cut corners or ignored warning signs in their pursuit of profit? And most importantly, what lessons can we learn from this disaster to ensure that it never happens again? In the coming weeks and months, we will be watching closely to see how the situation unfolds. The fate of these towers and the thousands of people living in them hangs in the balance. As the crisis continues to evolve, we will continue to update you with the latest information and developments. We will keep you informed on the potential outcomes and provide you with the tools you need to protect yourself and your family. If you're living in one of these towers, or know someone who is, it's time to act. The threat is real, and it's growing by the day. We will continue to monitor the situation and bring you the latest updates, but it's up to you to take action now. Don't wait until it's too late. We need to stay vigilant and aware, as this crisis could escalate into something much worse. If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any critical updates. Stay informed, stay safe, and don't let this disaster catch you off guard. The situation is evolving rapidly, and you need to be prepared. If you want to learn more, or if you live in one of these at-risk towers, leave a comment with the word number 1 and share your thoughts. We're in this together, and we must continue to raise awareness and hold those responsible accountable. Don't wait, take action now. Stay tuned for the next video, where we will dive deeper into the potential fallout from this disaster and what you can do to prepare for what's coming next.